All right, I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna repeat for some of you in front of me. So my name is Monica Meyer, and I'm presenting information on preparing for and planning for summer break. And that can be not only for our children, our students in school, but also for adults as exiting sometimes some activities that are typically a routine way of structuring a person's life, but sometimes during the summer there are breaks, there are vacations, there are camps and things that are available. And so I'm going to talk about some of that today. I just as an experience, I have an adult son who's 39, and I've gone, and I continue to go actually through the process of finding opportunities for him to be included in with any activity. It's still a challenge, I can say, but there are opportunities now that weren't really even available 30 years ago, as we were going, trying to plow through this unique path that hadn't really opened up. So there are a lot of things that I'll talk about that I was able to do that created opportunities that are still in place. So like I said, those who are online, feel free to ask questions through the chat, and Malia will let me know your questions. And those of you in front of me, please feel free to ask away.
So should we get, this is Scott Webb from Camp Stand By Me, also do his presentation. Can you open the document and share it?
I will.
Would you like me to step up around?
Yes, please, and then you'll
Okay.
show us in that top right corner.
Where's the best? There?
Well, I will get out of your way. You
Okay.
How's that?
May I?
Yes, please. Oh, okay. There you are.
Let's see.
Let's scroll down a little bit. The camera is on this. Well, no, it's on the owl. Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
I'll do.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Technology.
Great.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
I will let you do that.
Sure.
Oh, it looks really nice.
Okay. Super. Well, thank you for inviting me, and welcome to everybody out there and everybody who will see this. I think this is a really important topic because camp, I think, is a very, very, very important part of anybody's life growing up. It certainly shaped my whole life, and as a kid, I went to camp, and it was the thing I looked forward to. And so I've spent 32 years in nonprofits and working with people, and the last 8 years working with special needs campers. And this will be my 23rd summer directing a summer camp. So I'm really excited. I've hired hundreds of international staff and thousands of camp counselors and camp staff. So this is my life, and I'm very excited about it, passionate. And I've met so many campers that this week at camp, they talk about going for 6 months. they go to camp, have the most important week of their life, and then they talk about what they did at camp for 6 months, and then it starts all over again. And so I really appreciate being part of that. And my goal is to make a great, safe, fun environment for everybody to participate in camp, regardless of their abilities, and go about hiring a staff and preparing a facility to do just that. My first summer, I just arrived on site here on January 3rd, so really excited to be here. It's a beautiful camp, has a great history, and we're going to have a great summer. It has been challenging for all camps getting through this whole COVID thing, and most camps were canceled for a couple of years. Many have actually closed down, so I'm really excited that we're able to come back and make this happen. So we obviously look at camp from two different perspectives. I think it's just as much for the parents, families, and care providers as it is for the campers. That's a really, really important thing, because for many, this is 1 week out of the entire year where you have some time to yourself to go on vacation, to do something, just relax. For the kids and adults that attend camp, it can be a really special time where they meet up with friends that they've met at camp and come back year after year and see them. So I think it's really important. So our registration will open on February 1st. And if you get a copy of this flyer, down at the bottom, you'll see our address. We use a registration system called Camp-Rain. So if you log in there, you'll get your welcome. And it's not set up for 2023 yet, but it will be in the next week or two. You'll be able to log in there, get all the important documents, and register your camper for the summer. So making sure you have that website is really important. You can go on Easterseals Washington website. We have both a Facebook and a website. And if you drill down to camp register for camp, it'll get you right there. And then it's just walking through the steps. And there is a lot of paperwork, because safety and health is really, really important at camp. And so having those histories updated every year, making sure all the contact information is current, is really important. So parents have been coming for many years often ask, well, why do I have to fill that out again? Because if there is an emergency, we want to make sure that everything is current and we can contact you, and that's really critical. So on there is also the camp office number and an email address that will get to me. We want to answer all your questions, make sure you're prepared to register. This camp, I'm told, will fill up, so please get on there in advance. I think in the beginning it's limited to 1 week of summer camp and then 1 week of respite. So we're not doing any respite until the summer. I want to make sure we are 100% ready to go, have a great staff, but the fall is packed. We have almost every other weekend with respite camps. So the fall we'll have respite for all the age groups and all the ratios, as well as family camps. So what you're looking at here is our schedule for the summer. It's 8 great sessions. And so obviously you have the dates. You need to really look at those dates and make sure that you pick the one that fits your schedule. The second column is whether it's a 6-day or an 8-day session, or in the case of the family camp, a 3-day session. So that means they're at camp 8 days, including the first and the last day. And then the far right column is really important. So we have different age groups generally.
So we have a question from the chat. She has a 3-year-old, and she's asking if she would fit in the last summer section, August 18th through 20th.
That is for families.
Okay.
And so the whole family attends. We do, if the child has funding through DDA, then we do accept that for the child's portion. And it's a great opportunity to meet other families that have children. This one is for children 0 to 12. In respite and other sessions, you'll see broad age groups, so people can bring adults, everything else. But this one, we really want those young children, ones that have not come to camp. It's a great opportunity for parents to meet other families that are going through the same thing they are. And also that first camp experience. Once the family gets in the dining hall and their child is whisked off by campers and off having a great time and comes back safe with a smile at the end of a program period, it's a great relief for the parents to see that, hey, they can take care of my child. And I'm not the only one, so.
What if a family happens to have a teenager that's out of that? So the child with the disability is 0 to 12, but teenagers are welcome if they're a sibling, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the age group, 0 to 12, for this one is only for the child with the special needs.
Okay.
We want siblings to come because they're an important part. If there's enough in an age group, we'll have a group meeting or activity where that group gets together, because siblings, as you know, deal with a lot of things related to having a brother or sister with a disability. So talking about that is really a great part of family camp. The parents, being able to relax, we'll have a special dinner just for them. So yes, siblings are all invited and encouraged to come. We will have activities for those siblings, which will be fun. And yeah, we encourage the whole family. If there's extended family that are involved in the raising of that child, we encourage them to come as well.
I visited that camp this summer as a volunteer, and I just loved it. Everybody was having such a fun time, and the trails are accessible, so everyone can go into the rainforest and they enjoy it. We did scavenger hunts, and yeah, it was just really fun.
Yeah, camp is a great place for everybody. We've got the bay there with boating, the pontoon boats, canoes. We have archery that can, people at all different levels, beginners to advanced, can enjoy. We have arts and crafts. We'll have themed activities. It'll be a blast. We have the indoor pool for swimming. I mean, we've got everything. So a lot of the activities based on the individuals that are there, but I can't encourage you enough to try that out. If you're skeptical about summer camp, that's a great one to try. But overall, I really encourage, especially in the special needs community, there's a lot of, parents, moms and dads that believe, well, my child's different and nobody knows my child like I do and can take care of them. Well, we hire phenomenal staff. We do great training. We have 5 days of training before camp ever starts. We have experienced people that can work with them, and we take the full spectrum, personal care, behaviors. We really work with people and make sure they have a great time at camp. And I always say that the child or adult under care will be fine. Parents may be a wreck, but campers will be fine. So again, another question is a 27-year-old that's looking at going to camp. You'll see that they fit into many different groups, 3 different sessions there. So that's somebody in that age range you want to look at first. Do they want to go to a 6 or an 8-day session? If they haven't been, maybe starting with a 6-day, or if they haven't been away from home much, may want to start with a 6-day session. And then also their, how they act. Are they more inclined to hang out with the younger ones? Are they into more immature activities and comic books and things like that? Or are they more on the adult side and more, would rather sit and watch a movie versus go out and shoot bows and arrows and run around with camp? So sometimes it has to do with their interests. So looking at the age group that might fit them the most, if they're a young 27-year-old, looking at the young adults groups, they're going to have more kids on the younger age or more adults on the younger side. If you go with just an adult session 22 plus, there's going to be much more of the mature adults, a little more calm activities, little more quiet than the young side. So really look at those things, see what's going to fit the best. And then of course we have the children's session, and obviously those are geared towards the younger ones, maybe ones that hadn't been to camp as much. So that's why we have those different sessions. And again, at camp, the activities, so a typical camp session, typically come in after lunch, check in, meet the counselor. The counselors have spent all morning going over the camper files that you provide. So you talk about their needs, their interests, their, any concerns you would have. So the counselors really digest that before the camper ever arrives. And then when they arrive, we really want to check in with the parents or caregiver and say, has there been any change in the last, week or since you filled this information out? Have there been any recent seizures? Any changes in medication? Any changes in behavior? And what's really important? What are they looking forward to? And if there's a concern, do they have something that they like to hold on to, whatever. So we really want to get that information. They'll go off and do camp, and we do, like I said, the swimming. We've got a beautiful indoor swimming pool. We've got the boating and canoeing in the bay. We have fishing. We have arts and crafts. We have archery. We have basketball. We've got all the sports, and then all the fun evening activities, campfire, talent show, which would be the best thing in the world. The last night dance. If they want to bring something a little nice to dress up for the dance, that's always fun. Sometimes the guys will bring a tie and suit, and some of the girls bring a nice dress. But we make that last dance really fun for everybody. And of course, all our activities are fully inclusive. So, and then the last day, the campers all pack everything up. We're up there and we're ready for the parent pickup, and we start it all over again. So that's kind of camp in a nutshell. We're located in Vaughn. You can look up the address and see the property there. It's just a gorgeous place. So any questions, anything I didn't cover? Questions online? So make sure you get a copy of the flyer. It's got the schedule, how to register, our phone number on it. Okay?
And you've got your website. Is that, oh, there it is, right there.
Yeah, so you can put in Easterseals Camp Stand By Me, and our website will show up. We have a Facebook page, and then of course the registration at Camp Rain is really important. Okay?
I have a question. If we have potential volunteers, are you accepting volunteers, or do they need to go through that training program?
Volunteers for the summer. The one thing I really encourage is sorry about that. We only take volunteers pre and post camp, so cleaning up camp, getting it ready, preparing things for camp. Not during the summer. You'd have to register, you'd have to apply and go through the whole training and be fingerprinted and all that, if you're going to be on site at all during summer. And then the thing we do have is we have a leader in training program that is really, really valuable. So I love siblings. Siblings are by far the best camp staff because they've grown up with it. They're very protective of their brother or sister, which translates to our campers. And so a lot of it is just automatic to them, second nature. And if they have a passion for it, they become great summer camp staff. So we'll have a leader in training program that is 16 to 18-year-olds to come out. It's a great resume builder. It is a camp program, so you are registered as a camper as far as all the legal issues go. You're a volunteer, but you'll go through the whole training, and then you're pretty much in a cabin shadowing a good counselor the whole time, except you never do hands-on personal care, and you're never left one-on-one with the camper. So if you're in a program area which has a program director and some counselors, your counselor may leave you in charge of those campers, but it's always with the other staff present. So, but it's, I've had parents send, I had 2 boys that were sent to camp almost as a punishment in the LIT program. And it's like, if you're gonna play lacrosse next year, you have to do this summer. And they did not want to be there. 7 years later, Eric was still coming back to camp. He became the camp director, a program director for me, and was just phenomenal. And I see that over and over and over, where camp gets in your blood and you just come back year after year. So it's really an exciting thing.
Is Is it just open up to Western Washington folks, or?
No, it's wide open.
So I could put that, we could write up a blurb and put that in the newsletter.
Yes.
For the siblings of people, that would be really good. We could
Absolutely.
probably do that.
Yeah, that's our leader in training program for
Okay.
16 to 18-year-olds.
That's great.
Or if you're 19, 20, and you've never worked before, it's a great first job, and it becomes a great resume builder. I mean, colleges love to see this kind of work on their applications. Employers love to see that you've given back to the community, and it builds those skills. You gotta get up and go to work every day, and you're providing for somebody else, which counselors, I've just seen it over and over and over. It's one of the most rewarding things you can ever do. I've had staff come back years after years, and we hire international staff, so approximately half of our staff will be from all around the world, so London, the UK, and we work with some organizations that go through all the screening process and send us those referrals. So that's just a really cool experience to meet people you'll know for the rest of your life. Okay? Great, thank you very much, appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you so much for that information. That's awesome.
I know you did the newsletter, right?
Oh, yeah, I
So
was
I'll just make
something on mine that I'm like fiddling with.
This was in the last.
Okay, well, welcome back. I'm
This will be.
gonna continue on with this, the training of preparing for the summer for our sons and daughters. So you're gonna hear me use an interchangeable person first language and identity first language throughout this training. So person first would be that the language you put the person before you put the diagnosis. So, for example, it would be Michael experiences autism, or Michael has autism, versus identity first language would be, I'm an autistic man and my name is Michael. So you'll hear me say a person with autism or an autistic throughout, but I will interchangeably use them throughout this training. So the agenda for today, and hopefully, I've got a lot of information. I tend to talk fast. I would say, put your seatbelt on, because there's going to be information here. So basically, just run through, not run over. What is autism, characteristics of autism? How does your child experience autism? And that's one of the things that's important, especially when we're talking about camps and why that's important. Summer break, a whole different level of fusion. What are the things we need to think about now for summer success? There's vacation, travel, family reunions. There's summer camp, which we just had some information on, which was awesome information. So to start off with, that we're specifically talking with folks who have autism. It is a developmental disability that's lifelong and typically appears within the first 3 years of life. Oftentimes, children are born with autism, but others, they don't have noticeable signs until about the age of 3. Autism is a neurological disorder and affects the functioning of the brain. It's not a social emotional or emotional psychological or mental health disorder, although it can co-occur with it. Autism is a separate disability. Autism is 5 times more common in boys than in girls. And autism knows no boundaries, and has been found throughout the world, including the data that shows the increase in autism worldwide. There's no physical attribute or blood test that really can provide us information for a diagnosis of autism. It's all through assessment of demonstration behavior, that we can differentiate a person who might have an intellectual disability from a person who has autism, or somebody who has autism and an intellectual disability. It is a process, and there are a lot of assessments that help us get there, but autism is a dyadic impairment, meaning there are two pillars to the diagnosis of autism, that there's a social communication and repetitive behaviors, which are what the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, identifies through the process of interpretation and diagnosis of autism. So, again, more of the information is 5 times more common in boys. It knows no boundaries. And you can see the different, how it affects girls and boys. And then autism and race, there's also the difference of, I suspect the disparity oftentimes comes with access to resources that would show that Black and Hispanics have fewer individuals diagnosed with autism, and that has oftentimes to do with accessibility to diagnosticians. And autism differs from other developmental disabilities. It is a developmental disability, it's a neurological disorder, and can coexist with other disabilities. So that you'll see in the dark circles, those are the dyadic impairment, social communication deficits, or repetitive behaviors. In the meantime, you have associated neurological and other symptoms, physical manifestations that I always say is kind of like a celestial, all these moons and planets surrounding the diagnosis of a person with autism. Just because a person has autism doesn't mean that they are immediately identified as having aggression. Although there are some people that have aggression, and yet there are some people with autism who have no aggression. So, again, just giving blanket statements, we have to actually, again, as I had mentioned before, identify the characteristics of autism and how an autistic person relates to those characteristics. So there are degrees of autism as well, that a person can be on the spectrum, and that's why it's referred to as an autism spectrum disorder. So you can see over in the corner where it says, it's on the way here. Sorry. Let's see this one. The diversity of autism. So each of these, we're looking at the characteristics of autism. So a person can be totally nonverbal, and yet you can go to their IQ, the intellectual ability, and they can be average to gifted. And just because they're nonverbal doesn't mean that they're gifted, not gifted. So there's all these different areas of measurement, and not everybody falls in that same category. And that's why, again, it's called an autism spectrum disorder, because we have people that are all over that can, I still remember having, going to conferences, especially the Autism Society of America, and having people with, adults with autism present on how they experience autism. And some of them were completely nonverbal, that were chewing on pieces of rubber and rocking back and forth. And you could tell that the immediate reaction from a lot of people was that these people must have an intellectual disability. And in fact, every single person on that panel were people who had some sort of degree or master's degree or even doctorate. So we cannot make assumptions. We can't make assumptions about anybody, but especially a person who's nonverbal. That's one of the kind of the real difficulties that a lot of people have is really not taking why a person could be nonverbal and make some judgments that are not true. And even conversely, or I've had young people that have that are very verbal, very social, and yet that they're not able to comprehend. Reading over kindergarten level, they're not able to do process, and they don't have a good executive function. They're not able to put their shoes on correctly. So it just is a myriad of differences. And the characteristics of autism, like cognitive differences, different learning styles, sensory processing, difficulty with social relationship, need for sameness, and communication difficulties. And when I said, how does your child or adult child experience characteristics of autism? What's important for someone else to know about your son or daughter? And that's, again, what the director who just spoke about the camp is one of those things. How do we get that information that is stuck in mom and dad's head onto a piece of paper that you know that person the best? How do we get that in there so people also, because a lot of it is through intuition. I know, and people say, how do you know? I know, for instance, when my son started getting anxious, his breathing changes, and I hear it. I just immediately, I know that. So how do I make sure? It's like, well, you need to pay attention. He does have an aura before he has a seizure or before he has a behavior, and this is what it looks like. So we don't want to leave any of the details or what other people might consider minutia, because those are the things that, and like for instance, the case of my son, if those things are missed, it's kind of that cumulative effect. And it is seemingly like it's the camel that breaks the camel. It is the straw that breaks the camel's back, but he's had many nonverbal cues that he's escalating. And how do people know that he's escalating? And somebody who might not know him, for instance, he loves to draw, and if you're looking at what he's drawing, you can tell what type of mood he's in, because the faces are big smiles, eyes, lashes, nose, everything. And then when he's having a not so good day, sometimes he even forgets the face, or the face is kind of like a Picasso, and you've got the roundness here and the features over to the side. And you're going like, something's not going right here. Those are cues, and those are the things that I want other people to know. And it's just taking that time for people, again, just listening to, what was the gentleman's name today?
Scott
Webb, who, the director, or the executive director of this camp, the Easterseals, is it Camp Brain? I can't remember. Anyway, it's just taking the time to really outline what some of those barriers could be for your son or daughter. So we look at cognitive differences that most people with autism focus on detail and don't necessarily see how everything fits together. They may have difficulty integrating, information or abstract meaning and just distinguishing among relevant details. Because somebody who's like talking like me, there would be some people that would have a hard time deciphering what I'm saying, that they would do better following something along that's visual, as well as hearing it auditory. So it's a combination. It's not an if or and, it is both, or maybe 3 different ways. Different learning styles. That we know people with autism tend to have their eyes work better than their brains, their eyes work better than their mouth, or their ears work better than their eyes. Good God, I'm not reading this, so. Most people, their eyes work better than their ears. They are typically very strong visual learners, which, is not a little different from our general population. 70% of people are visual learners, but they typically have 1 or 2 additional coping or learning styles. It's interesting, I've been doing a project on universal delightful learning and identifying ways of presenting information that's going to hit the broader mass of people. The thing that really resonates with me on universal design for learning is we should not have to wait for the person to fail to get the right supports in place. And oftentimes, that's what people will do. It's like, oh, we'll just do it until it doesn't work anymore. Versus, no, we need to have those supports put in place on the front end. And so, I mean, like I said, that's one of those areas where, like I said, that just resonates with me to the fact that everything that, and I have been doing for my son and most anybody that I provide technical assistance for is, what is it this person needs to be successful? I'll just give you an example. This morning I was talking with a job coach, and this young lady, although she doesn't have autism, she does have an intellectual disability and cerebral palsy. And she has very limited range of motion with her hands. And though she loves to be around people, they're trying to figure out what can she do for employment. And she said, well, you know, I can't see her handing things to people because she can't do that. And I said, but what if we had something like, you know, in Las Vegas, they have the dealers that play cards, they have basically a machine that all they have to do is swipe the cards and deal it. Why can't we do something like that, that all she has to do is swipe? She doesn't have to hand, she can just swipe, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. So I look at barriers as opportunities that we can put in supports, rather than, again, waiting for somebody to fail and then trying to retrofit something, when in fact we should have put it on the front end. Sensory processing difficulties, you know, all of us have one quirk or another. Sensory processing, you know, one of the things that I do not like is, although I like ice cream, but biting off a wooden spoon or a wooden stick, oh my gosh, I can't, I have to cut it off because I can't. It's the texture, I can't do it. So I think about some folks, I mean, to the point where I will pass it up, I don't even want it because it's just, it's so bothersome. But imagine that if a person, the same thing is, let's say they're wearing a shirt that has a tab in the back of their shirt, and they don't know how to get rid of it. You know, you or I might, you know, reach back, look at the tab, or when we get home, cut it out, so I don't have to worry about it. Those are some of the things that are really are necessary, that we can make sure that we have somebody else understand those pieces. Auditory input, you know, the loud sounds may actually be painful to a person's ears. You know, screaming could indicate literally that they're trying to block out other noises within the environment. May have oral stimulation like food textures, hot, cold sensitivities. They may not like the flavors of something, or they seek and only want a certain flavor. I can tell you one of the things for my son, he loves anything that is lime flavored. If people like lime, that's usually like the candy you don't eat, that's the jelly you don't want, you know, it's not the yogurt you want to eat, and that's what he exactly wants to have. And that's just like, you know, he has some medication that he takes, actually it's a derivative of a CBD called Epidiolex, and it is in liquid form, and it's supposed to taste like strawberries. And I can tell you, it tastes like, I tasted it, and it tastes like a greasy strawberry. Oh, yeah, I don't think so. And as soon as he has that, he knows that he can have his key lime yogurt, and he's all right with that. But it took us a little bit to get to that point. So, you know, understanding what that oral stimulation, the olfactory, the smell sensitivities, you know, there are people that, it's interesting, I've had situations with residential providers for adults that perhaps one of their staff has a different type of cooking style, or a different type of ethnic or culture, and they use different spices, that oftentimes that can make be very disruptive to individuals. And then there's the need for proprioceptive input, that need for movement and joint compression, vestibular input, that need for swinging, spinning. It develops a more vestibular system. Anybody here ever had vertigo? It is the most obnoxious thing you'll ever have. And it's just, I mean, it's like you've just gotten off, or you've just spun around about 100 times, and then you're supposed to walk. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. And then, some people will even throw up. Vestibular systems have to do with our fluid in our ears, and there are some people who can have vestibular disruption, or they are the individual that can and seeks out vestibular information, their vestibular input by spitting just constantly and never seeming profoundly in any way disturbed by it. One of the dyads of impairment is that social relationship that a lot of people with autism struggle with, the complexities of social interaction. Doesn't mean that a person with autism doesn't want to make friends. It is that sometimes they need to know how to make friends. Difficulty initiating conversation or volunteering information. And then sometimes it's understanding another person's perspective, that theory of mind, that mind blindness. And you might have a different thought that's different than mine. I'll get into some of the social stories here in a few minutes that you will know what I'm talking about. Difficulty socializing and sustaining a relationship. There's a lot to friendship sustainability. Because as a friend, you check in with your friends. You want to see how they're doing. You ask them questions about themselves. And if you're a person with autism, oftentimes as the word autism means, it is all about me. Autoism, it's about myself, and they only see the perspective from their point of view. And sometimes that can be very off-putting to somebody who is trying to be friends with a person with autism, because it's like, they don't ask questions about me. I'm never able to get a word in edgewise. So there's a process of learning reciprocal communication and relationship development. And some of these opportunities, like a camp, having other students to participate with, are good examples, are good opportunities, because we need to have really social interactions in the lives of our kids, because social interaction is really the bottom line to inclusion. There are oftentimes, and I'll get to this a little later on, is talking about, there's oftentimes access to an activity, but there's not the inclusion piece. Just because you're in the building where activities are happening, but this person is on the peripheral, is not participating, that's not inclusion, that's just access. And we have to get to the point where it's like, how do we measure inclusion? Well, that's by how is this person participating? And it could look different, but it is developing peer relationship, and it takes time. Communication deficits, that's one of the hallmark characteristics. Can be very concrete, has difficulty with volume control, cadence, intonation, repetitive use of known phrases, large vocabulary, difficulty answering questions, especially open-ended questions like, how are you doing? Rather than giving a choice or a menu or an option. Understanding idioms and sarcasm. The use of echolalia, that repetitive, repeating what you have just said oftentimes. Lack of conversational reciprocity. Difficulty understanding nonverbal cues. Difficulty sharing a moment. That language that sometimes we sound like gibberish, and you're not quite sure what they have said. Understanding concepts, like under, in, over there, things that we use oftentimes infer a directive, when in fact it's a concept that we actually have to teach too. Some days language is easier than others. Person I was just talking with a job coach this morning, we were going through his person-centered service plan, which one of those things is like, they need to do this. And one of the things it said that he talks at home, but he doesn't talk when he's out in the community. And she didn't even know that she just thought he was nonverbal because she had never had the opportunity to see him. So that's one of the things that she's going to do, is make sure she has a visit at home, because it is about relationships. And that's where that social communication becomes really important and imperative for that person's inclusion and community success. That need for sameness, person who usually is unusual, resistance to change, develops routines quickly, may need to repeat something before moving on, may have one area of special interest that is highly developed, just love something that, I can think of, actually somebody yesterday, that her whole world is Star Wars. Everything has to do with Star Wars, and which was, it's just, it's just interesting because, I grew up with Star Wars. I was around when they had the first one, and watched like the first three of the series, but I don't know, they're 75 now, but I'm kidding. But at any rate, she knew everything about them, every character, everything about each person, their relationships. She just pulls it out of her head and knows these things. But she doesn't know the detail to the task that she's trying to do for work. So that just because a person has this really high developed area of special interest doesn't mean it can generalize into other activities. So what this is all about today is planning ahead. Now is the time to really think about, what does summer look like? And planning begins way before summer starts. Families need to start talking about summer planning. And again, interesting, this the first part of this training, talking about the Easterseals camp, it opens February 1st. So if you're not talking about it right now, and like he said, they fill up very quickly. They already have all of their fall respite already filled. So obviously there's a huge need, and it is important that you start talking about it early rather than waiting till the end of May going, oh, I think I'm going to sign up for a camp or two. Well, those are going to be long gone. So just ask these questions to get everyone thinking about how best to prepare the child for the upcoming break. Allow enough time to prepare that child for using repetition, the things that person likes, the routine. Because once school stops, so does that routine. You're getting up in the morning, getting yourself ready, eating your breakfast, going to the bus, doing all these things. We know that structure and predictability for people with autism is paramount. And although sometimes they will kick and scream because they don't like that routine, it doesn't mean that they don't like the outcome of the routine. They do like the routine. So depending on the ability of the child, this preparation may need to include skill acquisition. What does this person need to learn to be able to do the next part of this task? A revised daily schedule so that they have something that they can do and rely on. Visual supports, conversations about the fact that school will be on pause for a few months. Or if they're in adult services, there is oftentimes it's an interesting conundrum, because just when a lot of times family needs a lot of support, DDA receives their funding, their fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30th. And there's a lot of times, although that a person-centered service plan shows that, it goes like for my son's kids goes from September 1 to August 30th, but the state doesn't always know if they have funding. So there's kind of an ambiguous type of thing that happens during those summer months, that oftentimes there's not a whole lot of activity, whether it's supported employment or community inclusion, because oftentimes agencies don't know if they're going to get paid for it or not. So planning ahead is it's very important. Back here, so make your spring break, do that as a trial run for preparing and planning and putting things in place. That's usually a good start to just measure. And most families know, most families know that, holy cow, I mean, for some folks, it is, unstructured time can be probably the most difficult time for the whole family. So it is, how do we structure this? And as we talked about earlier, that, having siblings are also important, that they have structure, predictability, but they also have their time. And that we can have, everybody has an opportunity, because as you know, sometimes a special needs person can take the bulk of the attention of our parents. Let's see. Like I said, some ways that parents can help with the routines. Routine changes are by providing a schedule so that the kid can depend on something. And depending on the ability level, this preparation may need to include skill acquisition, a revised daily schedule. I think I already talked about this. That's a double one. You have low preferred and high preferred activities. We need to figure out a way, how do we embed that? I can tell you, if you've not used visual supports, the last thing you want to do is teach a person a process or something, the expectation of something with non-preferred activities, because they're not going to engage in the visual support if it's something that's going to lead them to a non-preferred activity. So there's a lot of scaffolding skills that happen there. You start with the first then. First, we're going to take a bath, and then we're going to, excuse me, good guidance. The first then concept that first we're going to take a bath, and then you have your choice of activity after we get dressed. Then it builds from first we're going to have a bath, then we're going to have, then we're going to make your bed, and then you can have a choice. And then you start building a schedule based on a first then concept. And it helps set that person up to learn that I can trust and understand that there is something favorable that's going to be part of my schedule for the day. So, it's funny because I've never thought about summer breaks as just a time to hang out. That was not anything that, for my children's childhood experience, was something that happened. It wasn't just a hang. We're not just going to hang out. It was like, how do I start putting things in place that is going to meet the needs of both my kids? And so finding structure in the home was something was important. And at the time when my kids were growing up, I found respite care providers or child care providers that came into my home. And one of the places I looked for, and it's still one of the places, a good place to look at, is educational assistants that are working in the school district, because they don't work during the summer. Bus drivers, they don't work during the summer. And I can tell you that on many occasions, those were the individuals that knew my son that became summertime supports. So think outside the box and think about, are there ways that I can find people that do know my son or daughter? Yes.
I just discovered that the Olympic College has a job board online where you could advertise for somebody
Right.
to provide service in the home.
That's awesome. I mean, that would be great.
And, yeah, students have off for the summer too.
Exactly, and they're always looking for some work, and especially, that's one of the things that I've thought about for years, or work study opportunities for special education teachers, or just teaching careers, or social work, that, during those, the off times of school, those would be opportunities to be able to learn more about, a lot of folks, and that's a great place to, are you going to put that on your list there? I think that's a great suggestion. So a daily schedule, kids thrive on the predictability and are prone to panic over transitions. including those on the autism spectrum, benefit from posted schedules that outline what's going to happen throughout the day. So it could look as very, something very short and sweet: bathroom, brush your teeth, take a bath, get dressed, have breakfast, backpack, and then the bus is going to take you to your summer camp or whatever. That's the start of the day for a person. That gives them an understanding of what are the expectations. This is really important. This is going to help. This is a lifelong skill that's going to help with a person throughout their life, rather than mom or dad saying, go to the bathroom, why don't you go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. Or did you brush your teeth? Did you brush your teeth? You need to brush your teeth. And it's not that your child, son or daughter, doesn't know how to do it. Oftentimes, it's an executive function issue, that they don't know how to organize and sequence an event or a process without a visual support. That's why visual supports are very important. And like I said, most of us are visual learners, but a person with autism, the majority of people with autism are visual learners. Like their eyes work better than their ears. And then teaching visual routines. Again, it's interesting working with a job coach today, and she has a person who's 34 years old, and he continually needs to be prompted to go to the bathroom or brushing his teeth. I mean, all the things that I just said. And she said, so he needs a lot of prompting. And I said, we have to make that inner discussion with ourselves to say, why is it that this person needs the prompting? And oftentimes the person says, well, they're nonverbal. That doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they're able to do a task. They become dependent upon being prompted. But what we can do is instead provide them with the facilitation of using a visual support so that they can have independence for the rest of their life. So a visual routine could be, as we talked about, the schedule. So the schedule says, we're going to get up, eat breakfast, get dressed. Well, how do I get dressed? Sometimes we have to break it down into the routine so that I get dressed. Actually, this should be in reverse. It should be underwear and then pants, which is funny. I say, go put your shoes and socks on. And my son will always look at me with socks, then shoes. He's like, oh, yeah, order does matter. But it's something that I've said for my whole life. It's just like, duh. I mean, that's, at any rate, we say a lot of things, go put your shoes and socks on. You wonder why the child is sitting there, they have their shoes on and they didn't put their socks on. Or they go into their room and all of a sudden the Legos were pulling towards them and they forgot that the bus is going to be here in 10 minutes. And mom comes in, you're supposed to get dressed, the bus is going to be here, oh my gosh. Because we can't stand over the top of our kids. How can we help them? And that's going to be by giving them something to follow so that they know how to do something. I was with this exclamation, how many of us have gone to a conference or taken a flight? And let's say you're taking a flight somewhere. Your anxiety oftentimes is you're going through TSA and they want your driver's license, they want your boarding pass, you've got it on your phone, you've got all these things. How many times do you look at your boarding pass to know what gate you're supposed to go through? Often that is the one thing that people have to look at over and over again, and it's why. Because we get into fight or flight. And when we get into a fight, flight, or freeze, actually, it means all of our blood has rushed to our extremities. It's a prehistoric instinct that we just do, that we get into a fight or flight, that we are sensing fear. So our ability to recall can be very difficult. And we think of people with autism, when their day is out of sync, their ability to organize and sequence themselves can be disrupted and can't be successful without somebody prompting them or using a visual schedule. I'm not going to show you this, but Autism Speaks, if anybody ever looked at Pinterest for different activities, I do all the time. Sensory needs, Autism Speaks, or if you just put autism, sensory activities, those are all fabulous resources to be able to think of, what kind of craft can I have for my kid? What kind of activity that's sensory input? And it could be, making, playing with Play-Doh or making, what is it called, glue or whatever.
That's not allowed in my house.
No.
Slime.
Slime, oh,
So hard to get out of.
oh my gosh, well, and then add glitter to it. That's even my grandchildren. But at any rate, there's even more than that. There are, the proprioceptive needs that we have of folks that need for joint compression, that they need to walk, that they need to jump, they need to bounce. Those are folks that are seeking proprioceptive input that actually helps with joint compression and helps regulate their sensory processing. And we need to be able to embed some of these functional activities within a person's schedule. For instance, a functional sensory activity might be the child making their own bed, or picking up laundry, or moving, because if they're moving, they are getting proprioceptive input. The more proprioceptive input we have in our life, and that's why psychologists, doctors, everyone says, go for a walk. You need to, it'll clear your mind, you'll feel better. Well, there is science behind it, and your body really, it releases chemicals, dopamines and epinephrines as you walk. Gross motor skills are gross motor impact activities are very important. Allergies, it is interesting in recent years that we do know that alternative medicine has shown that there are certain things in our diet that suggest that the symptoms of autism can be worsened with different foods, specifically gluten or wheat protein or milk protein. Oftentimes have very poor symptoms in children with autism. And then when those have been reduced or eliminated from their diet, their affect has turned around. And a lot of it is, yes, it is the process of the food, but it's the brain-gut relationship. And I don't know if you've heard the analogy that your gut is your second brain, that if your second brain isn't working, your ability to manage yourself, to even communicate, when you're eating the wrong things, you will not have the ability to really organize yourself, to be able to sometimes communicate, participate, and people, like I said, will have sometimes more aggressive and more self-injurious behaviors when not eating some certain foods. And this isn't woo-woo stuff, this is actually there is science behind it, and it's very, it's fascinating and it's unfortunate, because again, it's one of those, it's kind of retrofitting, finding out what's going on with their son and daughter when it's like, gosh, we could have started this a lot sooner, waiting until they're, in grade school, and it's like finding out that everything that they eat during the lunch is that they have chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, tortilla chips, everything that has some sort of gluten or casein in it, and those are the things that are literally attacking that kid's GI system. And then they're expected to go in and sit and participate in class. Those are things that really have shown are very difficult. Allergies, boys with autism are more likely to have respiratory or skin allergies. Food allergies can play a role in the pathophysiology of autism, as I had mentioned, and really the avoidance of certain foods can be beneficial. And that's going to be important if you have a care provider, if they're going to camp, if you're going to a family reunion. Know that, I know, I'm going to have a family event at my house. There are people that have vegetarians, I have vegans, I have people who are gluten-free, I have, there's just like, we have a buffet. Because you can't make one thing and one size fits all. I actually did do that though. I made baked ziti, and I had one that was just pasta, noodles, tomato sauce. The other one was pasta, tomato sauce, and just cheese. Oh, the other one had meat. And then the other one was cauliflower and tomato sauce and vegan cheese. So, I actually was able to kind of all do it together. But at any rate, those are some of the things, we want to make sure that they have something to eat. I mean, that's the one thing, you know, if you ever gone to any event and you're like, holy cow, there is nothing here I can eat. It's a little frustrating. So vacations, how are we planning for these vacations? You know, travel, flying. Air travel can be really exciting and yet very anxiety provoking, not only for the individual with autism, but it could be for the parents as well, or any other siblings, just like flying can be paralyzing for some folks. Yeah,
Seattle has the daisy or sunflower symbol that you can wear to let people know that you have some kind of disability.
that's great.
So I'll put that in the email.
And CTAC also has sensory rooms,
Oh, CTAC has sensory rooms.
as well as Portland PDX have sensory rooms as well. And that, again, it's, you know, just sitting and waiting can be sometimes just interminable for a person who's having difficulty of just the idea of sitting and waiting. You or I might pick up our phone and start looking at things or reading a book. We have ways that we structure our unstructured time. And when that all we have, the only expectation we have of this child is you just need to sit and wait, there's going to be significant difficulties. Having, you know, people, I mean, and with good reason, want to limit screen time, but these are opportunities where screen time really works to the benefit of the individual. So in the weeks leading up to a trip, it's interesting because we had a family here before the last few times that there was a grandson, there was the daughter, the grandmother, and the great-grandmother and grandfather that have traveled with their grandson, and they made sure that they had things in place. It's surprised they're not here today, actually. But in the weeks leading to your trip, you know, create a picture or a word story or a social story with what your child, go over it with your child with the air travel process. What are the expectations? Social stories are a great tool in doing that. A picture description of security, the terminal, the airplane. If possible, go there, go to the airport. You don't have to go through TSA, but you can go through the process of what it looks like. Have them become familiar with the airport. The other thing is that include sensory experiences that a child might encounter, such as ear popping at takeoff and landing. Have them understand that and make sure that they have something that they might be able to chew during those times, because we know how to make our ears pop. We know what it is. That person will just have to deal with pressure and can be, especially if they are nonverbal, not able to express themselves other than through aggression. Develop a travel book. And I have a travel book for my son, and it provides for pretty much every eventuality. I started thinking about what does he need to know? What if this happens? What if we're delayed? What if the plane was redirected? What if, et cetera, et cetera. I want to make sure that I have a social story or something that's going to help that in that situation, because I know for me, those are all things that I have experienced on flights. And, you know, they're not fun, but it's like, you know, everybody kind of grumbles and gets off the plane, you know, disembarks, but a person with autism, I know if I had my son on a plane and that we needed to leave, that would be a very difficult process. But if I had and was able to show them social stories like this plane is broken, we're going to find another plane that's fixed, and then we're going to be able to go to Disneyland, which is usually where we fly to, and then we're going to have a good time at Disneyland. So he understands we are going to go to Disneyland, but it's going to be on a different plane. A few weeks prior to travel, you know, hang a calendar with the departure date, you know, something, you know, similar to people do for Christmas. You know, you might have, Michael's care provider actually does the chain, the construction paper chain. So when, and it's usually for when I'm out of town, that she'll say, you know, I've got 5 of these, and when all 5 are done, then mom's gonna come. So that visual representation of time passing, of the day passing. Another situation I have of a person who said, my son or daughter, they don't know how to tell time, so I can't really structure things. Well, you can. And the concept of time is just that. It doesn't mean that they have to tell time by looking, at a regular clock, analog or a digital. It might mean that I have 3 activities before I have my choice. So that's still a process of time passing or activity passing or days passing. There are all visual opportunities, because without it, it just becomes very ambiguous. As if someone just says, so like, well, in a little bit, we'll do that in a little bit. Well, what the heck is a little bit? What concept? How do you demonstrate what a little bit could be? If there's somebody who needs structure and predictability, a little bit could be, as I have used in the past, could be even Post-it notes. When these Post-it notes are gone, there'll be time for us to be here. That I can manage the Post-it notes so that person knows how time is passing, and that when they get upset, or that I can say, look, I've got 4 more Post-it notes, and then they will be here. So it is helping that person understand that time does pass, and they need visual cues, which is why we all have calendars, which is why we have clocks, which is we all want to know what time it is. We're not looking at the sun and where it is, because here in the Pacific Northwest, you would never be able to know what time it was during the day anyway. It's just dark. So traveling on an airplane, like I said, can be overwhelming to the senses, and any traveler, let alone to a child with autism, is going to be bothered by some of the sensory input. If you've been on a plane, sometimes when the captain comes on, it's just all this static, and it's just like, you have to really strain to listen to it, and it can be overwhelming. The sound of the plane just flying. We learned to kind of block out the deafening sound that happens, that for that person with autism, it becomes overwhelming. So you can actually rent earphones in the airport that you can take to the next destination and drop off, or bring your own so that the person can wear it. Have a favorite item, don't wash it. And so because if it's being washed, it won't have really the smells of home. And that's what we want, is that person to have something that smells like home, that will help them in an environment that they're unfamiliar with. Pre-packed meals and snacks, again, is one of those. There are limited assortment of foods in a terminal or on the plane. And this can prove really troublesome. So when you've got the, they're flight attendants. When the flight attendant comes down, would you like to have a cracker and, a soft drink? For, some folks, it's like, that's just not gonna work. So having pre-packed snacks and meals that the child or the adult with autism can eat is really, it's gonna just help their day. And especially if it's food that they can eat. Especially, one of the things that I would do is when we're flying, I make sure that my son has things that are really crunchy, like carrots, like celery, because it's with that chewing motion that does help your ears pop. So take that into consideration when we're putting snacks together. And then also, there are going to be times where you have a very picky eater, and we want to have food for them to eat. More chewy things also might help with pressure in the ear popping. Traveling on an airplane involves long periods of being quiet and sitting still. Encourage before the flight exercise. Have opportunities. If you've ever seen a mom or dad waiting for the plane to come and they have their toddler running up and down, the walkway or the terminal, it's like, that they're just running them until they can just fall asleep. But there is, as I had mentioned, that the need for proprioceptive input for individuals with autism being able to walk, making sure that they can walk from, from the TSA to their gate is going to really help with providing that proprioceptive input. And then being able to just check in at the gate to be able to continue walking. Again, those are activities that you want to do so that, again, when that person gets on the plane, they're not seeking or needing more input. And we don't want them to use up all their bottled energy on the airplane, because nobody really is, mom and dad included, are not going to be all excited about that. The high gross motor proprioceptive activities like running and jumping or on the trampoline for approximately 20 minutes are examples of really ideal activities. Again, in a situation like this, even though they've had those, that might mean that the person needs to have some solitude, maybe in a sensory room where it is quiet. Because what happens if you're in a room that is quiet and there is some solitude, you can just feel your blood pressure go down. But if you're around people with high energy, what it does is we are social beings, and we take in that energy, we take in that excitement, and that is, if you're familiar with synesthesia, which is a type of sensory processing, people with autism can take in oftentimes emotions from other people, activities from other people, and they actually feel it, but they're not able to express it. So keep those things in mind when we look at ways to be able to support a person in those eventualities. If possible, fly when it meets your child's sleep or nap schedule. But I don't mean sleep, take the red eye. That means that you're not going to sleep, and then the next day, you land and you're like walking around like a zombie, and this one's ready to go. Just, identify time where it's like, their best time of the day that they will maybe attend to, doing something on their iPad, or want to draw, or relax, or be able to watch a movie. Sometimes it's like late afternoon or early morning. There are just opportunities, and you might be able to, depending on the flight schedule, really meet that need. Talk about TSA and accommodations. To accommodate travelers with disabilities, the Transportation Security Administration has really established a protocol that allows for special accommodations. Really, that includes boarding. And if you can, there are several times during the year, I know CTAC has it, and so does PDX. They have opportunities for people with autism to be able to board a plane, sit on a plane, talk to a captain, talk with the flight attendants, so that they are familiar with the flight, especially if you're going to go, if you have the intention of going on a vacation this summer. Look at things that are this spring that different opportunities are offered with those airports. And like I said, I'm only familiar with Portland International and with SeaTac, that they do have those opportunities to contact your local airport or TSA and see if they have, the sensory opportunities or autism boarding practices. They can, like I said, they can help walk through the whole process so that you can explain that we're just practicing, so that when we get ready to go, we'll know what we can do. And that, again, is just familiarizing a person will help alleviate anxiety or aggression during opportunities where they have not had the opportunity to experience the level of activity, the directions, the things that, it's like, oh, hurry up, we gotta get to the next gate or we're gonna miss the flight. Have you ever said hurry up to your son or daughter or anybody with autism and it doesn't work? I can tell you, it's like, I can tell you, it's like, if we're supposed to hurry and, the gate is gonna be, the flight's gonna take off in 15 minutes and it's gonna take us, 15 minutes to get there, there's a likelihood we're gonna miss that plane. And I can't worry about it. It's just because if I try and stress him out, it's not gonna be a favorable opportunity for anybody on the plane, including my son or the person that you're supporting. Help the child, the individual, become more familiar with the airport security process prior to the day of travel. Because going through, we have learned to adapt to the process of TSA, of going through metal detectors, going through independently, putting your arms up. Then, maybe even having to have a special swipe over your body. Those, for somebody who's not familiar with it, it can be very disturbing. And again, we want to be able to have that person. There are videos online, even YouTube. How do you go through the security or the TSA? This is how you do it. So you can prep and prepare the person for, like I said, all the eventualities that may happen. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I go through and it's just fine. Other times it's just like I go through and it's like, would you step to the side? I'm like, really? I've got like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt on. What the heck? Well, sometimes it could be lint in your pocket. So, all right, that's fine. But for somebody else, it might be, and I've actually seen people where they had to step aside. It's like, what's going on? Where am I? That they get very upset. Sometimes I'm like, well, why are you being so upset? But other times it could be a person who is on the autism spectrum that did not understand or didn't know that this was a potential is going through TSA. And like I said, year-round, they have different opportunities going through TSA. Different airports have sensory rooms or quiet areas that you can go. Notify the gate attendant that you'll be traveling with a person, whether it's a child or even an adult with autism or any sort of disability that you will need to board early, or sometimes it's board last. Because if you board early, there is a likelihood that you're going to have people walking over, they're going to be putting things above, they're going to be doing all these activities that may be disturbing for the individual who's flying. So make that thought. It could be, I want to be last on the plane, so that I don't have to get worked up and be hurried to make sure I get everything stowed away and sat and buckled in. It might be, I need to do that last. And that's going to be something that you are going to be able to determine whether your son and daughter is going to be able to do that. Other advantages of actually boarding last is not needing to wait in line at the gate. Again, I don't know what it is, it's like, we are boarding A, and then all these people are running up, and it's just like, it's not the plane's gonna leave. Why are you all excited to do that? So at any rate, the advantages of boarding last, not having to wait in line at the gate, you're going to be last, not needing to wait in your seat while the passengers are getting on the plane and boarding, etc. It's gonna be just a shorter process of getting on, plane flies, and then you go. Ear popping, again, having something that's going to help that kid not get in pain. Oh, that's one thing I just hate is hearing the poor babies crying, because you know that their ears are popping and you have no way of changing that. Watching the time, placing a digital clock or a countdown timer in front of your son or daughter, that may help them know what to be expected on the in-flight, how long it's going to take. There are a lot of airlines, gosh, my airplane just keeps getting in my head, airlines that have in-flight destinations. You can see that you have taken off and you can follow yourself across that. So that also is a visual representation. It doesn't tell time, but it is a process of saying, we're still in the air and we still have that way, that far to go. So that, again, that gives that concept of time is passing and we are moving instead of, we're going to be there pretty soon. Those concepts don't always work for our kids on the spectrum. In-flight entertainment, a child should have access to their travel bag, and I have a travel bag for my kid, my adult son. I have a travel bag for me. I mean, I have my favorite snacks, I have my favorite book, I have my favorite things that I have to help me be comfortable. And it's no different from our kids, and even more so, that we want to make sure that they have, if they have a DVD player, an iPod, If they like to read books, they color, draw, they have certain toys that they have. If your child enjoys tactile stimulation, that may benefit from like Play-Doh or putty while they're on the airplane, so that they have something that, again, it is tactile, but also with the squeezing and the pressure, that's proprioceptive input that helps a child relax. In 2008, the International Air Transportation Association, IATA, introduced a new code which is DPNA, which stands for Disabled Passenger with Intellectual or Developmental Disability Needing Assistance. So you might hear that in the airport, and that is a code that is used to book flights for passengers with autism, Down syndrome, or elderly. It is a DPNA, and that is, again, an international code that help them understand that there is a person with a disability that will be traveling. Here's one of the things, meeting relatives or family reunions, especially, I mean, oh my gosh. That sometimes can just, whether they have a disability or not, it can be challenging or it can be wonderful. I mean, there's a lot of things, but all we want to do is prepare the person that there are going to be a lot of people there. We want to prepare the host, who is the one that is hosting it, that's coordinating the family reunion or the dinner, the barbecue, that these are some certain things that we need to have in place. Can you help us with that? And then prepare your child for that. You know, we're going to go to Aunt Susie's and we're going to have a barbecue. Your cousins are going to be there. There will be a lot of children playing. But if you get overwhelmed, you can go to this room. Those are the preemptive supports that we want to put in place to make sure that they will have, everybody will have a successful time. You know, really a foreign environment, to deviate from a person's regular routine, and it can trigger, you know, autistic children, and it remains pivotal to foster as much consistency and familiarity on the day of the event as possible. So in the morning, make sure that they have that same routine that they're followed. If you go to the event, or if you're, you know, having to drive to it and you're staying at a hotel and then you're going to Aunt Susie's and coming back, have as much routine opportunities in there. Keep, if you can, a certain time of day that you have lunch, a certain time of day that you have dinner, because, I mean, that's even important for any of us, because our blood sugars, we get used to a certain way of eating. And when you have your son or daughter who, they have an expectation of their whole body understands a cycle and a process, and when they are off, they will be off. And trying to get them back on schedule can be as difficult as it is trying to help them navigate something that is different. For relatives, you know, the final preparations you'll make are really the most important thing. Have pictures of who they're going to meet, who's going to be there, if you can. And it's going to be that there are going to be people that want to come up and meet you. And like I said, I do social stories. We had my son and I went to a family reunion. Now it's probably been 5 years ago, and you know, having aunts and uncles that hadn't seen Michael since he was a baby, and you know, now he was in his 30s, and they're like, holy cow. And the interesting thing is that they, a lot of people, including, I mean, my family and relatives, had not had the experience of being around a person with a disability, and they didn't know what the heck, what to do. And then I have others that were just like, you know, oh, I'm so glad he's here, and you know, and I was like, well, I'm glad he's here too, because he is family. He is your nephew, or he is your cousin, and so sometimes we don't know it, but we have to be the icebreakers. We have to be the ambassador for our sons and daughters, so that they have a sometimes just clearing away, so that they have an inclusive opportunity. Social stories. I write social stories all the time for my son, and it really is, it's an important tool that it helps the understanding of the perspective from somebody else's point of view or concept. There's a lot of things a social story can do. And we do know that social rules change with age. Social skills increase with significance and nuance and sophistication with age. You know, what was cute at the age of 5 is not cute at the age of 18. So some adolescents with autism don't recognize the rules have changed. What was funny, or maybe what's funny at home, that, you know, they pass gas in front of their brother and sister, isn't so funny at church. I mean, those are things that, it's like the rules have changed, and the rules can be different at one place than another. We need to teach explicitly. So the social story provides a product for teaching. It allows others to see things from a first-person perspective, provides rote practice, describes a situation, skill, or concept, focuses story on the individual, how it affects the individual, what the individual might feel, translate behavior into meaningful activities, to acknowledge positive behaviors or skills and efforts, to actually celebrate that, to encourage generalization of behaviors in other settings, to explain situations that are difficult for a person to understand, to explain situations to the person who has misinterpreted, and to prepare or pre-teach, because that's what social stories are best known for. It's not, in the moment of a situation is not a teachable moment. Social stories are the preemptive, the pre-teaching opportunities that we prepare a person for social setting, you know, eventualities that may happen. So for instance, at camp, it could be, you know, sometimes when Sally gets sad and upset, she screams. So that's a description. Sally screams because she is so upset. It hurts Nicole's ears when Sally screams. So this is for Nicole, the social story. Sally does not know she is hurting Nicole's ears. When Sally screams, Nicole can go to her room, cover her ears, or go outside until Sally stops. When Sally screams, Nicole knows what to do for herself. Because oftentimes people with autism, they want that to stop, and they don't have the perspective that this person is engaging in something that is difficult for them, so they need to learn the perspective from somebody else's point of view. That's what mind blindness is all about. This is my son's grandfather, my father, has, he's passed away now probably 15 years ago. And Michael, to this day, will even say, what does Grandpa say? And he goes, because my dad, I mean, he did it all the time. And it was, you know, I didn't want to get into the whole thing that Grandpa has post-nasal drip, you know, that's, you just have to expect it. I needed to let him know, and this way, we did this all the time, as Grandpa clears his throat all the time. It scares me when Grandpa clears his throat. And it did, because it's just seeming there's out of the blue for him. Grandpa clears his throat because he is sick. I didn't want to say Grandpa has post-nasal drip, and, you know, that's just what it is. Get the concept, they understand he's sick. Grandpa loves Michael, he does not want to hurt his ears. When Grandpa clears his throat, we ask him if he needs a glass of water. We ask Grandpa if he needs medicine. When Grandpa clears his throat, I can go to my room. When Grandpa clears his throat, Michael knows what to do. And to this day, every time, even if I talk, he'll take my drink and hand it to me. And it's like, that is the power of the social story. That is what, to be able, for him to see that, you know, Grandpa's not trying to hurt you. That was something that was important for him to know. And that's something, like I said, will stay with him and has stayed with him for a very long time. So, like transition to a new activity. Sometimes Neil goes swimming. Neil likes to go swimming. Sometimes it's hard to leave to go swimming when I am watching TV. So this is transition to a new activity. Neil can check his schedule to know when he will be back to watch TV. When Neil leaves home, he can go swimming and have fun. Neil will know he will be back home after swimming. Everyone is happy when Neil can go swimming and have fun. Neil is happy when he can go somewhere fun. So there's one thing, transition for all our folks with autism, transition is hard, even as from an activity that might not even be favorable to a favorable activity, just the idea of transition is no bueno, don't want to do it. So having a social story and having a schedule to say, we're going to be able to come back and watch TV. We're going to be able to come back and watch, I can't remember, this morning, a young woman, she went to go see one of her customers, and he is just thoroughly enthralled with this new show. It's called Love Island. Anyway, and it's just like, it's one of those reality things that, the hookups and this and that, and he does not want to go until that show is over. And so they've had an opportunity where they can show that they can save it, and he can watch it later whenever he wants. And so that was something that they had to do in the social story, and that he's in the process that he can make sure it's on record. So when he gets home, has his lunch, he can watch Love Island. Especially when you can have a motivating activity for a person to get through a difficult scenario to something that's motivating, it can be a very powerful teaching or transition tool. Being safe in public bathrooms. I mean, this is one of those things that's just like, holy cow, teach the concept of what private and safe means. Everyone needs to use the bathroom when they are away from home. That's just the description. That's just what happens. When people use the bathroom away from home, they need to be private and safe. Those are concepts. What is private? What does safe mean? Daria will need to use the bathroom when she goes to work. Daria can make sure she is private by closing the door, locking it. When Daria closes the door and locks it, this will keep her safe. So we've just gone back and we are explaining what the concept of safe means. When Daria closes and locks the door, she is private and safe, and that makes Mom very happy. So she needs to understand that there's a reason for that, and there are some that I have been just as clear as nobody wants to see your business. You need to pull up your pants. And I can tell you one of the things that happens, even for adults, that a person will come out and they've always needed somebody to help them with their pants. So they just come out with their pants down, and somebody goes over and helps them pull their pants up. It's like, well, they're not going to generalize that it's going to be different here than it is on the airplane. So what do I need to do? Well, there's one thing, especially if a person's having difficulty with their a button in the zipper, make sure they have pull-on pants with an elastic that they can pull on. Replace the zipper and the button with Velcro. If somebody's needing attention, there are ways that we can put in place so that person can do things independently. And it will also help in situations where a person, they can do these things privately and in the bathroom. This is actually for my son and for me, and he does not like it when I am upset, sad, or mad. And so I wanted to show him a side-by-side using a 5-point scale of what it looks like. So I can say when Michael's happy, Mom is happy. But if Michael's up where he's kicking, hitting, grabbing Mom's throat, that makes me very sad. But if you want Mom to be happy, you need to be happy. So I can use this as a 5-point scale that says when Michael is sad, Mom gets worried. When Michael runs away, Mom gets sad. When Michael tries to hurt Mom, Mom gets very sad and will cry. When Michael grabs Mom's throat, Mom cries and is very, very sad and wants Michael to be happy. And so he'll always say, Mom happy, and I said, what do you need to be? Well, Michael needs to be happy. And that means having a smiling face that you want to draw. So using this in a way that helps him understand the progression of his behavior can affect me. How do you teach a concept like that? And this is one of those ways to help him understand using a 5-point scale, but I use a social story format, or use a 5-point scale format to teach the social story or social concept for him to understand. Really, inclusion is being very intentional about selecting summer activities. Again, I love the presentation earlier today about making sure that people are included. Because most of the families try to get their kids in a ton of summer activities like Lego camps, gymnastics, karate, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately what happens, kids attend these activities but they don't participate. They're not part of, that they are like on the peripheral, that they are not involved. How can we help them become involved? And it's just, pretty much as plain as what you or I need to do is that we need to do the front end work before we have our son or daughter with us to say, my son or daughter is going to be coming, this is what they need to be. You don't have to tell them what their diagnoses are, you don't have to tell them anything. The accommodation for this person's disability is this. Access to services need to be based on a person's disability. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to follow that rule. And frankly, I don't want my son or daughter going to a place that is not welcoming. I want to go to a place that, are you wanting to learn more? I will give you an avalanche of information. Matter of fact, I will do training. I will do whatever you need to make this accommodation possible for my son and anybody that walks into that door. Tells you that a child is not just a place in a room like a piece of furniture. It's that they are actually participating and have a social benefit. Emphasize that you expect your child to be part of the group, not just in the physical proximity to the group. How are they involved? And sometimes that can look really different. I kind of thinking back, it's interesting. My son loves to go to, it's like every third month on the third Sunday that it is a welcome new parishioners potluck. He loves going to that potluck because he gets to hold on to the microphone and say his name. And it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, the first time we went, I thought, well, this will be just, we'll see how it goes. I mean, he's been to the church, but he's never been to a social event. But we'll see how that goes. After about 2.5 hours, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm done. And he's just like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. But I tell you, he gets a microphone in his hand. It's just like all of a sudden, he's the lounge lizard that he wants to say hello, he wants to talk about, but not without that microphone. He just was blank. I think it's kind of interesting. He actually got up, and this was at an autism conference that I coordinated some years ago, 8, 9 years ago. And again, it's one of those opportunities in the evening after we've had all the conference breakouts and all that we had dance, we had music, we had different sensory rooms, we had game rooms, we had everything for everybody to be interactive and participating in. It was loud, the music was loud, but on Michael's schedule, in his headphone, that after this song, you'll be able to do karaoke and you'll be able to sing. He just sat there and waited, headphone on, waiting, and then it was just like he popped up and I didn't have to do anything. I mean, this man has incredible social anxiety to the point of, it's agonizing. But for him, we get a microphone in his hand and he'd start singing. And it's usually a Motown song, he loves Motown. So anyway, it is, how do we help this person to be socially included? How are they participating? Even if it's, passing bread to somebody else. How are they participating in that rather than just, like I said, being on the proximity of it or just in having access to the building? Explain how your child interacts socially, what their communication style might be, what are the biggest motivators are, as well as the specific skills you want your child to gain from this group. So if they're going to go to the Lego group, what are your expectations that you would like to have for your son or daughter? So it's not just, they have Lego camps. What is it during this day camp that's important? And oftentimes it's not that he's going to come home with the most intricate piece of Lego masterpiece. It is that he or she was able to interact with his or her peers during that opportunity. And it could be as simple as that, that they're sharing the different pieces, or they're watching somebody else, that they have joint attention activities that they're participating in. Summer camps, and just like we were shown earlier, although there's a lot more day camps than there are overnight camps, as was described to earlier. Sometimes these day camps could be just as much as we're going to take, we're gonna take the ferry from Kingston to Bay Bridge and back. We're gonna have lunch. I mean, that can be an outing, and that could be a day camp, and those are things that a lot of times kids will do. Or overnight camps, or once of the week-long camps that were talked about earlier today. So it's summertime. Summer is a time that children really often look forward to because it means break from school. No strict rules, but for our kids with autism, a change in the daily routine creates a whole new level of stress. We want to minimize time off from schoolwork. We want to provide schoolwork opportunities during at least one time during the day, because the thing that we do know is that a lot of our kids regress significantly, and then it takes a large part of the year to catch up, and it's that reteaching and the reassessing and getting the person back up to where they were before they regress. So how do we help that person not lose as much over the summer so that they have to catch up in the fall? And that's by, sometimes there are, programs at the library. Sometimes schools offer extended school year that they can go to. These are opportunities that you want to make sure that are available. And especially, I mean, extended school year can look so different from school district to school district, from class, to school building to school building. So check out what extended school year might look like. It's part of an IEP process. And if they are able to show over the period of spring break that if this child has regression, they should then qualify for extended school year. And then for kids with autism who may have extra difficulty either gaining new skills or retaining skills, this is even a bigger problem. And I'll tell you what I did, and actually this was an opportunity of working with my school districts in my area, that the extended school year program did not meet any, it was just basically drop your kids off, you have a teacher, and they're going to do schoolwork. That was not appealing to anybody. And so I was able to pull together several different resources. That included the school district, many different school districts in my area. There was 5 that contributed to extended school year. So I had 20 students in this program, but I had 4 teachers and I had 8 near peer age supports. And what we were able to do by using extended school year and DDA respite dollars, we were able to create a community-based instruction program where kids from the age of the transition age. And so I was really focusing on really 16 to 21 or 22. And every activity, every day, it was out in the community. Then we would all meet at one place, and then we would go on the bus. We would go work to whatever activity. So they were constantly in the community, constantly being provided social opportunities, going to different places, having their peer supports. And the interesting thing is, I know I have one instance where I had a person who really had a significant meltdown, but for the most part, everyone had just the students as well as the near peer age. And it was one of those opportunities that I had college students, again, near peer age, that needed or wanted work opportunities during the summer. I had this one guy, and he was a good size young man. Good size meaning he probably weighed 250, maybe 275 pounds, 6'1", and he, regardless of the temperature, he wanted to wear a sweatsuit, that heavy-duty jersey, fleece-lined sweatsuit all the time. And he got on the bus, and he always wanted to sit in the back, and there was like 5 different guys sitting in the back, pretty tough-looking guys. And Aaron went right up there, and he didn't even say, "Excuse me," he just went, "I'm gonna sit here." The guys were like, "Hey, what you doing, dude?" They were just like, and it was just like such a leveling the playing field, I guess, that, we didn't say, "Oh, you need to get away from, you need to have your own seat." Of course, we look at that, we need to help them understand what seating is available. But again, somebody who needs structure and predictability, that's where you want to sit every time. Somebody was there, and you need to scoot over, I'm gonna sit here too. So, anyway, we always found ways and opportunities, and that's, just being creative. That was just, the necessity was the mother in a dimension, and that's what I made sure that for my son, he had those opportunities. And as we know that many people, whether it's children or not, are often rigid and inflexible when it comes to change. So transitions can be really difficult. Schedules can help them offset that so that they know what's going to be, what are the expectations, and even most importantly, what's going to motivate me to get through this. Isn't that what we do? We have our schedule for today, and it's just like, I'm going to get through the day, I'm going to go home, and I'm maybe going to watch my favorite TV show, or my favorite movie, or we're going to, read my book, or do whatever. Well, for me, I'm going to go to my grandson's swimming after this, which is exciting. So we always look forward to something, typically, or even if it's on over the week, it's like, I can't wait until the weekend, because then I can sleep in, those types of things. We give ourselves goals to get through, and sometimes we have to have goals that might be one step to the next, or it might be 2 steps to the next. What is motivating for that person to do it, other than, oh, you need to brush your teeth. Why do I need to brush my teeth? Sometimes teaching the person the concept of brushing your teeth, like for my son, I'll say, what's your schedule say? Brush my teeth. And he'll look at me and goes, why I brush my teeth? I said, because you're going to have little bugs that are going to start eating your teeth. And he's like, I'm going to brush his teeth. I mean, that for him, that concept made is like, oh, I get this. Sometimes it's just a good reminder that we have to go through that with him more times than I want to mention. But what I like this on Thursday, he has a dental appointment, and I'm thinking, one of the things that he likes to do is go for a drive that we're going to do, and that he's going to be able to listen to his favorite music, and he'll be delighted with that. So first we'll go to the dentist, then we'll go for a drive. And he will do activities oftentimes that he doesn't like, because he knows it's first I do this, and then there's the next thing that I can do that's I really want to do. So again, like I said, this is a different level of confusion for all of us, and here are some ways that we can actually kind of reduce some of that. Prior to the start of the camp, parents with kids with autism should familiarize themselves with the environment where they intend to send their child to. And like you said, Malia, that you went to this camp, you familiarized yourself. That's going to be really important. As he said, it's more difficult oftentimes for the parent than it is for the kid. It's just like, I've never been here before. I don't even know anything about it. And that I'm going to send the most precious thing in the world to me off to the hands of somebody who doesn't know anything about my son or daughter in a land of absolutely, I have no idea what's going to happen. So it's not only beneficial for the individual, it's beneficial to the parent or guardian. Contact the director to make sure you have a mutual awareness of the details that make the camp a success. Similar to the presentation he gave to you today, it's just like, gosh, I mean, I'm just like, where do I sign up? I mean, I was ready. It was like, he made it very intriguing, made it sound like, all right, I could potentially trust this place. My son went to a summer camp during, up until he was about 18. And I live in, like I said, the southern part of the state here, closer to Portland. And so he went to a camp that was on Mount Hood, and it's run by the Kiwanis Land Camp. And they do that in conjunction with Portland State University, that students, I don't know what students, but at any rate, they, as part of their community social service, that they can volunteer to do this camp. And I can tell you,
do you remember the name of the camp?
it was Kiwanis Camp, no, Kiwanis Camp.
Kiwanis.
Kiwanis, Kiwanis. Juana's.
Okay.
And yeah, which, like I said, it was interesting because I remember like going there and getting to meet the camp counselor, and they've learned a bit about Michael, and they're all near peer age. And so sometimes these were kind of like football players that were like, trying to be cool, trying to be, be a dude kind of thing. By the time I went to pick up Michael, they were, Michael's favorite thing is playing Motown music, or his favorite movie, which is Sister Act. They knew every word of the music, and they were repeating it, and you could just see that everybody was just like, this is fun, this is cool. And it was, again, one of those opportunities that I know that was really something that he enjoyed. Camp provides the avenue for kids to, build community around their special interests while participating in lively activities, and we want to connect them to what they like. I do remember one of the things that Michael did was they had a creek, and what they did is they had a person in a harness, and it was similar to what a zip line would be, but it wasn't, you had to actually pull yourself across the river with it. And they have a video, I have a video of them doing it, and I'm like, what? I mean, are you kidding me? Wouldn't even thought in a billion years he would even want to do that, but because other kids were doing it, he was like, I do it. He's like, peer pressure, are you kidding me? I mean, this is one of the times that I appreciate it. So that's where, being around other kids, having, the same levels of interest, having the same level of energy can be something that, especially if they're able to share their interests, or at least trying to explore different things. It's a great opportunity. Ask questions. Prior to the start of the camp, parents of kids with autism should familiarize themselves with the environment, where they intend to send their kids. Again, going for a visit, then taking your son or daughter to there and looking at it. And during the winter, it can look a lot different than it does during the summer, because usually like the pools are empty and there's nobody there, but at least they familiarize themselves. What is the camper to counselor ratio? I mean, as I was named already, Scott, he talked about, what the camp leader or group leader, and then you have different counselors, and you have the different counselor to student or camper ratio. Those things are important. How many campers will participate? How many people will be there? What is the specific schedule for the week? What is the routine of the day? What adaptations could be made if needed? Like, for instance, they have times a lot of bunks, and they have top bunk and bottom bunk. Those are the things that they would need to know. Does your son or daughter get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom? Do they know how to navigate their bunk bed? You want to make sure if they're not, you want them on the bottom level. So those are things that you want to make sure those adaptations or modifications are put in place. Take time to explain the strengths and needs of your child. Like I said, for Michael, he loves music, he loves to draw, he loves karaoke. Those are things that he really, those are his strengths. And for this one guy, knowing what Michael's strengths were in his little town kind of focus and the songs that he liked, he made at the time a DVD, or a CD, I should say, of all of Michael's favorite music. And so that he had a Walkman, so this has been a few years ago, but he immediately shared it with Michael, and it was almost like, my world, you're speaking my language. And there was like an immediate connection. He had prepared himself for Michael, which made Michael feel very accepted. And by providing the information, it reduces the stresses, or the stress triggers, I should say, calming activities, and how best to handle an outburst or meltdown. For some people, like for my son, he could not handle the cafeteria. There was just a lot of noise. And so he would eat in a different area because it was just too overstimulating.
At this camp, they have indoor and outdoor. So most of the campers eat inside, but they do make accommodations.
Mm-hmm. Which is, great, because you just can't force a person, especially with environmental sensitivities, it's just not going to work. And if the child or adult has a positive behavior support plan, share it with them. What is it, it goes through the whole process of how to support this person, how to identify what could be, the setting event, what could be a trigger, how do we redirect this person, how do we help them calm down? We want everyone to know all of those details and not be shy or wait for them to say, well, I want them to know that he literally can create a lot of havoc. It's just like, I want to be upfront. If these things aren't in place, there is the potential of him being upset and being aggressive. And so that immediately gets somebody's attention. I want you to make sure that these things are in place. I want to help you as much as I want to help my son, that they will have a positive experience. Have visual instructions, have the camp, do they have visual instructions? If not, I'm going to send one. There's going to be a portable schedule, a one-on-one safe person that your child can refer to if he has questions or needs help. The other thing about the Gowanus Glen camp is that I had two of Michael's. One was one of the camp counselors was one of Michael's respite care providers, and the other was a teacher that I worked with on the original autism consulting cadre. So I knew these two people, and I'm like, these are your reference people. I want to make sure that they know that we have a safe person at any time. And now, obviously, that we have, we didn't have FaceTime at that time. We didn't have, a way to connect with somebody other than a phone or a cell phone. So we have other opportunities that can help a person feel a lot safer. What are some transition cues that we could use? Make sure there's short breaks, sensory breaks, or downtime when we need it. Understand what their sensory preferences. Debriefing at the end of the day, typically with the camp counselors to be able to talk about, what can we do, maybe something, or, I had them call me in the evenings and can you help us with this? How do I help Michael? And I was like, oh, sure, you can do X, Y, and Z. And they were very, very open to the suggestions, and they were helpful. And before, prepare campers at home. Before your child leaves for camp, give him or her information about what to expect. Pull together a short social story that tells the person the activities and the new concepts, the new areas that they're going to be, that they may not be familiar with, like sharing a cabin or a cabin bathroom with several other people. Rules for participating in activities around a campfire. You don't whirl around a flaming marshmallow, that's not a good thing. Rules for staying with the group. You just can't wander off. You have to be part of the group, and you need to use the restroom. You need to tell your cat counselor or your support person. After the routine has been reviewed, ask for the person if they have anything that they want to talk about. Is there a certain scenario that they have questions about? If they're able to communicate that. Practice relevant situations that allows the person to think about, an interaction and how to stay calm in those situations. One of the tools that I use, I don't know if I have that, nope, I didn't. I use using the 5-point scale that helps the person be able to help self-modulate their social emotional regulation. I'm sorry I don't have that in here. And goes from the color of green to red. Red being, I'm going to roll on top, this is out of control. And what it does is helps the person within each of those 5 categories identify how they feel physically. Because with each of our emotional expression, we have a physical manifestation. So we can help that person understand that. I've used like dinosaurs, so I knew that this person loved dinosaurs. We started out with this little tiny salamander to a fire-breathing dragon, meaning, this is your happier, just, very playful, and this, you're a fire-breathing dragon, and, all hell is broke loose, basically. What are the things that we can do in between, and how do we help you get back down to salamander level? Dietary needs. If your child has limited diet or tends to wander off as unsupervised, I actually have a friend of mine, her son, he does have, he's on a certain diet, but he will elope. He will leave his family's house. He has scaled fences. In particular, he went to this one house who was a her childcare, or a nursery school in her house. And he had seen on occasion the garage door open, and she had like rows of like Costco shelving, ceiling to floor, with different food products and toys. She had it very well organized. Where he saw that she had frosted flakes one day, and that was the only thing that it needed. And when it was time, he fell over the fence, he broke into their house and got the frosted flakes. You know, and the fact that he was about 5'10" and weighed 300 pounds, it was a little disconcerting. For the homeowners, frankly, they knew who he was. But in this event, you're gonna go in, if a person has a dietary needs, that's where having snacks and having things that would be available to the person so that they aren't perhaps gonna wander off and go to the cafeteria in the middle of the night or eat somebody else's food that they're not supposed to. Dietary needs need to be addressed up front. And what it might look like, and what are some of the exceptions that could happen in that scenario. If you're packing for an overnight camp, pack one entire set of clothing in a large plastic bag. So it might be in a gallon Ziploc bag. They would have shorts, shirt, socks, underwear. So each day was already put together so that they're not having to search for socks, search for underwear, get a shirt and shorts. It's that on Monday I can take it out, and here are all my clothes. So that's going to be helping that person really understand what they can do independently to get themselves ready for the day. The child will then be able to be better organized in their suitcase and can actually follow the process. So it's a good idea to pack a few extra sets of clothing for the week in whatever eventuality that may occur. Packing a transitional object is beneficial. So somebody who needs to have, it's like, oh, can you hold, could you, like, tiger? Well, yeah, they have that. That is actually some of the camp that Michael went to. They had, each lodge had a different symbol. And so somebody had the opportunity to carry the lodge symbol to wherever they went. So that was something important. You can carry that to whatever, or it could be your favorite thing that they want to carry with them. But it all helps with the transitional opportunity for a person. Because we know transition is hard for anyone that we work with. Tossing in a few photographs of mom, dad, sibling, dog, cat, goldfish, that they can actually have hanging on their bedside or that they can look at when they're at camp is really important. Be sure to check with the camp director to ensure that any item that you do send with your son or daughter has been okayed, because sometimes they don't want to have electronics, but obviously they will make exceptions. If it's not an exception that will be considered, then perhaps that's not the camp that you will want to send your son or daughter to. So, like I said, plan ahead, especially if you're having portable video games or CD things. We want to make sure that some places they don't just confiscate it, and now you have somebody who is like literally out of their mind. So after thoroughly talking with the camp director and preparing your son or daughter for what to expect, relax and enjoy your week as well. Your child is ready to enter a wonderful experience full of adaptations and supports to allow them to thrive and encourage them to participate in a group with other children with similar interests. The one thing that for a lot of families who have kids with autism who need that structure and predictability, if this is their first year of going to a camp, I would suggest staying at home. Don't go on a vacation somewhere, that because there is the potential that they can call you and say they're just not, they're not wanting to go to sleep. They are just having a really hard time that there is the potential that you might have to go pick up your son or daughter. If they can't reach you, you need to look at what are some of the processes that they will put in place. Some of it have been, in some places, call the police, call APS for abandonment. So make sure you have processes and procedures in place, and make sure that that is written down on paperwork that is provided on the intake forms. And just similar to what Scott had said, is you will see a difference in your son or daughter in whatever camp experience that they have, whether it's a day program or whether it's, throughout the week. Ask the camp counselor to take pictures so that you can talk about those experiences when they get home. This is true even for campers who are nonverbal. You want to be able to show, have the person say, who did you sit with at lunch today, and that, a person's able to participate, that you have something that you can actually enjoy between the two of you. And, again, the idea that we can send pictures virtually, that's a whole other ballgame.
When you get that form about taking pictures and sharing, you should probably say yes, allowed.
Yeah.
That way they can post the pictures to Facebook.
Good idea. Yeah, because usually taking pictures or videos, they'll ask, can this be used for marketing, or can we just use it for for specific things? I just want it for my own personal use, or you can use it on Facebook. It will really delineate all that. And then those who need personal care needs, who might need assistance with toileting or showering, opportunity to work on, following a visual routine schedule would be really a good idea. And yet there's still going to be the need for assistance. And I can tell you, a visual system works not only for the individual with autism, but helps the support provider know what are the steps, what are the next steps. Because each person, showering can be a completely independent, individual process that could be different than what the person has had or experienced before. So keep things the same there. So the visual supports are going to be, like I said, as beneficial to the camper as it is to the counselor. Detail what adaptations would be most beneficial and ask how to incorporate them within the camp structure. Again, the first thing concept. First we're going to go to our cabin, and then we're going to come back, and we're all going to, because I'm thinking of my son when he went, first we have to go unpack, and then we're going to come and we're going to make our name tags. So they had, jute rope that they made, put their name, they painted and draw and put, would write their names on these wedges or slices of wood so that their name tags. So it was something that, again, that they were very excited to do. Start off with the first maybe then add a 1 to 2 step direction, and then if that person has difficulty processing verbal directions, we want to make sure we have verbal directions, not verbal directions for that person to follow. Sorry. So here are important tips that tips that parents should teach when it comes to pedestrian traffic. Again, this is not a complete list. And if if your son or daughter is at home, we want to have functional activities for that person. It's time to go for a walk now because it's going to be good for you. I know that for some folks, that's not motivating for me, but if I have to take my dog for a walk, that's motivating. To go for a walk, and I think I have it in here, one of the things that I've done on many occasions for folks is helping a person go for a walk is develop a scavenger hunt. That's a visual, we're going to look for these things in the neighborhood. Let's see which ones that you can find. And as you're walking around, take pictures before you go for your walk and say, let's look for these pictures. Let's look at, these pictures, and let's see if we can find them in the community. So that gives that person something, a purpose. It's not the fact that we need to go for a walk. We're going to go look for something. That makes it an activity that's more intriguing than saying we need to go for a walk. We do know that many people with autism are prone to wander, and they can get distracted. So we want to make sure that that person knows what public safety, what road safety, if to be able to teach these concepts. They may have difficulty focusing on the safety and cleaning or anticipating what a driver might do. And so some of the things that I have suggested, and I just suggested here in this training, is also have GPS trackers for our kids. GPS trackers are going to be something that is going to help the person, we know where they're at, if they have a scenario where they do elope, they have watches, they have shoelace, they have GPS trackers that you can put on a person's shoe. There's a lot of controversy over having tracking devices for kids because it is, the right to privacy. But in these events, when we know that there is a person who's not going to be safe, who could be victimized, could be a whole host of things, or like my friend whose son decided to scale the fence and go eat the frosted flakes. Another event is that he went in late at night and got into somebody's hot tub and was just chilling in the hot tub, or I should say soaking in the hot tub. So make sure everyone understands the challenges that you face around traffic, so that if they're with their respite care provider or with a neighbor or their sibling, so make sure that they walk on the inside of the sidewalk to make sure that they're not going to just dart out in traffic, that we stop at every curb, and teaching concepts. I always have people say, go to the curb, all right, look to the left, look to the right. What concept are we teaching? No, that's what we're inferring.
Right.
But what a person who's a literal concrete thinker and goes left, right, and I'm walking. So look, is there a car coming? Look to the other side, is there a car coming? Now we can walk. So, the emphasis that we put in place, we need to be very literal and concrete about this thing. This includes also your child, school teacher, neighbor, childcare provider, police officer, train station staff, anyone your child regularly interacts with. We need to have them know what are some of these situations or scenarios about public safety or pedestrian safety. That functional activity, as I say, go put together a scavenger hunt. Take pictures of islands and landmarks in the neighborhood for your son or daughter to look at, or take your dog for a walk and let them know that it's about the dog, because they want to go out, they want to smell the fresh air, whatever social story they need to put in place so that they understand the concept is that the dog needs you to be able to go for a walk. That's what I use actually for my son. He's got a companion dog who is a golden doodle. His name is Scooby, and it is
We need a dog.
his pride and ownership, and the pride that is his dog. I mean, we've gone to public markets actually with him, going through and navigating hundreds of people.
But he's got that social anxiety.
I know.
That's awesome.
That he's got that dog, that makes all the difference in the world. If he didn't have that, if he didn't have Scooby to be able to focus on, everybody else would just be overwhelming. And if a dog came up to Scooby, I mean, of course, they'd kind of sniff at each other, and then I would laugh, and I said, look, they're meeting each other, or you're smelling their butts, but they're meeting each other, they want to get to know. So it's, again, it's one of those joint attention activities that you focus on the dog and not on the owners, which is usually something that really is helpful for a lot of folks with autism. GPS tracking device, like I said, there are so many now that are just, you can download something, especially if your son or daughter has a phone, an iPhone, or a GPS tracking device. There are so many that you can just get over the counter. I mean, I remember, this is probably 25 years ago when, it was a big deal. It's like, oh my God, you can rent a tracking device. It's like, oh heck, you can just download it on your phone. All good.
My daughter has one.
Does she?
Yeah, because she has a cell phone and has the family name, Google Android. My child is understood.
Awesome. And that's really, oh my gosh, so valuable. I mean, I think at times years ago, I mean, my son, Michael, he was that way, he was bold, he would just run, he would just take off if something happened, and it's like, oh, Lord. Those are the things, my gray hair that I have, that's for me. So, also consider an uptick in your BCBA services. I mean, this is a great time that we're out of school. We also want to make sure that we have, if you are accessing board BCBA services, board certified behavior analysis, that would be a time that you can uptick that and work with the treatment team to decide what you're going to focus on. Look at and talk with the teacher, the student's teacher, look at their IEP, and continue, as I had mentioned before, on what some of the skills that we don't want to regress, how do we keep them moving forward. It can really be valuable, and you can have really focused skills that you're going to be working on during the summer months. Should it reduce problem behaviors, which would be the number one goal, having a BCBA come in and look at and work with academics or self-help skills. For younger students, it may be targeting toileting process. This is a great time to teach toileting, especially during the summer. They're warmer months and there's less clothes. And you can immediately tell when a person has wet themselves or soiled themselves, that you're going to be able to help them learn the toileting process. Water safety. Water safety is critical for both children and adults. And tragically, this is the leading death among autistic people, is wandering and drowning. That's, every time I hear some things like, a child has wandered off from the house, and it seems like many times it's the child has gone to a river or pond and they have drowned, or a pool, and that they know that there's a pool in somebody's yard or whatever. So water safety and teaching water safety is really important. For whatever reason, and for whatever reason, any of us are drawn to water. It's even more, seeming more people with autism are drawn more to water. And it doesn't matter if it's winter or summer. And that's the unfortunate reality. So teaching water safety, start early, sign up for swimming lessons. This is the time when you're thinking about school, summer break, is check with your local pool or your recreational services and find out what are some of the swimming lessons.
The swim coach down in the Bremerton Y has a lot of experience with autistic people.
Really?
Her day job is as a para, and she's just really great.
That's awesome. You want to cultivate those kind of relationships, seriously, and early, because as soon as the word gets out, it's somebody who's like, oh my gosh, then, the classes fill up really quick. So sign up for swimming lessons, I would say earlier. Emphasize the dangers of water. And that can be teaching the concept of what it looks like, why, mom or dad, they want you to ask to be able to go to water, for you to go into water, that you just don't do it independently. There are really ways that we can emphasize the dangers of water. Take precautions to prevent wandering. You need to tell me where you're going, even if it's using a picture exchange that says, I want to go play with somebody, or I want to go to the bathroom, or I don't like, I need to leave. Spread the word with neighbors, friends, and family that I have a son or daughter, and they may wander, and they may be drawn to your swimming pool. Make sure that you have your gates closed. Those are all things that can be very positive to make sure that you have that relationship. I think that's great now, again, it's one of those things that, with the Ring camera, is they use it for, pool safety as well. When something is being opened, there's an alarm that shows that somebody. So if somebody in your neighborhood say, have you ever thought of having a Ring camera on your pool, on your gate? Those might be things that it's not only for your son or daughter, it's for their grandchildren, your children, the neighbors, whoever. power cards, the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? You know, these are tools that really potentially solve solutions, the critical thinking pieces that happen all the time. What can I do for myself? And so I mean, I can tell you, like for instance, I had a young man who was, he wanted to build a library, and only way he can build a library is by accessing the bus. And so being able, I mean, parents were like, no, he can't do this independently, we're not gonna do it, it's just not feasible. Of course, having a tracking device made it a lot easier, the cell phone. We also gave him a power card. What if I get up on the wrong stop? What if I forgot my bus pass? What if I was late and I missed my bus? What if? So all the what ifs you provided, and it can be on your son or daughter's phone, or they can have actually a pocket flip that says, this is what you do in this case. You can ask somebody of authority, you know, whether it's, you know, the bus driver, how do I, you know, how can I call somebody if they've forgotten their phone, or they forgot their charger and it's dead? What are things that the person can do? Power cards, again, it empowers a person to be able to do things independently. And then I said, check out Kitsap County Parent Coalition list of summer camps. Would you have that posted
I
on?
will. It's already posted, and then I'm gonna make sure that the Kiwanis camp is on there.
Oh, cool. Yep, and there's, like I said, as Scott had mentioned, that, you know, their registration for at least the one for Easterseals is February 1st. So most camps are starting to open their registration here in the next couple of weeks. And they do fill up quick. And that being said, you do have some opportunity that you're going to be able to prepare your son or daughter, especially as you have spring break that's coming up. You're going to be able to practice some of the things that you wanted the person to learn ahead of time. And then there are some folks that have issues with funding resources. How am I going to pay for this? As Scott had said, you know, there are times that, you know, using DDA resources is one of those opportunities that you might be able to pay for your camp. It might be some camps actually have scholarships that you can apply for. There are different places that may give you opportunities, and would that be something that they could check in with you, or?
Sure, right. I know some, like, or I could do some investigative research. Like, there's a camp called Camp Prime Time that's for children, and that's free. It's all volunteer led.
Yeah. So those would be, find out, again, looking at your list, which ones are free, if there are funding resources, if there are scholarships, if you can tap into, like some of your respite hours could be used towards being able to pay for a child to go to a camp. There are just really a variety of things that you can use and do. And, you know, for a lot of camps, they want to, I mean, just like Scott was saying, it is so exciting to see the look on kids' face, to be able to help them have opportunities that they would not have otherwise, that they want to help people be able to participate. So plan early, ask sooner than later. Don't wait to the last minute. Think about it now. Think about all the things that I've just talked about. Of course, there are many things to think about, but most importantly, make sure that people know who your son or daughter is, how they experience their autism, how they learn, how do they follow directions. Those are all going to be very important, valuable information so that it could be a fun experience for everyone. Let's sign up early. There are many places, and actually Seattle Children's Hospital also has a list of summer resources, camps around at least the Puget Sound area. That includes Kitsap as well, because I know that we've looked at that. So, like I said, there are There are a lot
There
of
are
places that have it.
also, in this area, there are some local churches like New Life that have, summer camps
Good point.
that they, actually pair a buddy with. So some camps may not be great for your child because the ratio is, too many campers to, what are we calling them?
Counselor.
Camp counselors, yeah, and they don't make, accommodations for your child, so you'd want to ask those questions.
Yes, that's a good point. And yeah, churches in particular, because they have oftentimes vacation Bible school, those sorts of things, and they actually have recreational activities. Yeah. The other thing that's important, that would be an important idea or concept is if families are receiving BCBA services or ABA services, that one of the things that they can do is the ABA specialists can go to camps and actually do services in a natural environment.
Ooh, generalized.
That's
Yes.
right. So keep that in mind as well, because then you would have kind of a built-in buddy too in that regard. And I think what Scott might have been suggesting is also if there's an opportunity there, again, having a sibling that might be able to go and be able to, right, of course, my daughter would have been at that age, she's like, are you kidding me? I need a break. I mean,
Yeah.
and that, that often happens too. I mean, they are, to this day, my daughter is, she agonizes over Michael, and she has 3 kids of her own. And she's like, how I'm gonna make sure that Michael has the things, and, that's been her life legacy, and, she remembers, and she's made a very good point, that our kids, they actually spend more time with our kids, our special needs kids, than even the parents. Because they, like for Molly and Michael, Molly was always with Michael in her childhood, child care provider. Every place where I couldn't be, Molly was. And this is, that's just something that, as, Scott really mentioned, these are exceptional situations, and really, we have exceptional individuals that come out of it oftentimes. And like I said, they need a break too. But there's some that are just like, they want to go ahead and do things that, that they want to do with their son, or not, their brother or sister, but that's something to also consider. Like I said, who can you enlist for help? And I think I had mentioned, especially paraeducators that are out of school. We talked about, college students, we could go to their work board and be able to post, looking for, a care provider to support, a young adult or a child with autism. Tap into resources that are there, especially with people who don't typically work during the summertime, especially when we have students, we have teachers, we have paraeducators. There are a lot of people that aren't working during those times that might be seeking opportunities otherwise.
There's a staff shortage right now, so yeah, it's a little early and now they're percent.
That's very, very important, yeah. There is a staff shortage with, it's everything. So if you are able, like you said, to be able to build that relationship with a bus driver, a school bus driver, a paraeducator. It's, again, my son's been out of school a long time, and he can still tell you who his bus drivers were, what the bus numbers were, and that they were oftentimes during the summer his care providers. They knew them, and they were looking for employment otherwise during the summer. So that's what I have for you today. I hope, those who are online, and thank you for being here in person, that you had some thought-provoking ideas that might lead you to, consider more summer activities, plan for the summer, maybe apply for a summer school, apply for extended school year, apply for a summer camp. So think about it sooner in this next few weeks, rather than waiting until the end of April or after school spring break and think, gosh, I really should think about summer. because unfortunately, as Scott said, they fill up really, really quick. We want to make sure that people have opportunities. So the sooner you think about it, the quicker that you're going to have opportunities. So were there any questions from anybody, or did you have any questions? Did you have any comments? Is there anything that you, yeah?
Well, I could comment all day.
Oh, all right. Did this resonate with you?
Yes,
Yes. Well, good.
I just retired from teaching elementary school. I'm just kind of looking back in that world of trying to meet everybody's needs, trying to have a predictable schedule in a system where something's different every day.
Yes, yeah, yes. And that, yeah, how do you build structured predictability around unstructured opportunities?
I got a fire drill one day, you gotta take pictures another day.
Yes.
Come and check your hearing and, an assembly, there's just constantly throwing things that change your schedule. It's hard for some kids.
Yep. That goes for adults too. I mean, I'm thinking, it's, my son lives in supported living, so he is the only one that lives in a house in the community, and he has 24/7 support, weight support, or he needs 24/7 line of sight services. And so for him, it's just like he needs structure and predictability. But inevitably, they have staff from the office, from the agency that wants to come in and they do their audit. And they have somebody else that comes in that checks all the food expiration dates. And they have someone that comes in from the rental that they need to check this or that. There's people coming and going. And it's just like, I think I've asked this, and you probably know me before. Did you ever watch the cartoon Fraggle Rock?
The kids did, but I didn't.
Well, my kids did too, and I always thought it was really interesting, because here are these little Muppets, they're kind of doing their thing, but behind them, they were the dozers, and they were building things all the time. So while this person's having a life, there's this stuff that's going on, and it was literally, they would bump into, a building that they just put together or whatever, and they would just build it back up. And I think about that, kind of the backstage, the things that happen that for our kids who need structure and predictability, those can be the most disruptive things in their life. And so I've said, for my son, he actually has a schedule for the day, and then he has who his staff is going to be, that's on the left side of his schedule. On the bottom, it shows what activity he's going to do each day that he can look forward to. And then we have like a parking lot. And the parking lot are for people who might come by. And those are, you need to give a 15-minute warning that you're going to be coming. Because we can take that picture and put it on like a schedule and say, they're going to be here after you take your bath. It's just, especially his staff, is like this, they have gotten to the point that it's like, this is so important. That it used to be, oh, yeah, until they see that Michael has a complete meltdown during these opportunities. And I said, this needs to happen. He needs to know that somebody's going to be coming into your house. That's just not an accommodation, that's respect, because that's where he lives.
Because I don't want the inspector coming and checking my food at any moment.
And it should, exactly, and it's like, this needs to be an invitation. Do they want them to come here? That's their house. And oftentimes I think this is my place of work. It happens to be in someone's home. So that respect and dignity that needs to be provided to anybody that comes to a person's home, including a child, who you have somebody now, a respite care provider, an ABA specialist, that having them understand, instead of just like, oh, by the way, Cheryl's here, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, be like, oh, my life is just falling apart. It's not just an accommodation. It is, we all wanna know who the heaven's name is going to be at my house. That's just, it is just a common respect that we need to give for anybody, regardless of their child or adult. I'll get off my little soapbox now.
Shall I stop on the recording?
Yes. Right.